Awakening is the next natural stage of human development.
So awakening is simply to recognize the nature of our essential being.
It's not some weird mystical religious experience that's only available to the few. It's available to everyone.
What we essentially are is already fully awake, fully aware.
And it's totally unlimited.
Your true nature is closer than the you that you think you are.
Consciousness is the ultimate reality of the universe.
The next step in science is to say that consciousness is fundamental.
What is awakening anyway? Somebody explain that to me.
What is awakening? Whether you call it the true self, the immanent self, or no self, or Buddha nature, Tao, or Christ consciousness, it really doesn't matter. In this film, we're going to refer to it as awareness. Awareness is not the property of any religion. Awakening or realizing awareness is like waking from a dream. The dream of your character in the play of life. Through our characters, we experience the world in all of its beauty and its ugliness. We can call this experience of life and death duality. Around and around we go, fixated on the character's thoughts and sensations. Good and bad, war and peace, light and darkness, birth and death, until we wake up and find out we are not the character. In this film, we are extending an invitation for you to directly experience your true nature, to find out directly, not intellectually, who are you? We will repeat this invitation in different ways. When inquiring into who you are, let everything be exactly as it is. Don't move the mind to make something happen or to find some answer on the level of mind. And yet, don't try to push away the mind. Simply intend to directly experience who you are, letting the mind be a don't know mind. Awakening is the answer to all of the world's problems on every level. All of the world's problems stem from a delusion, the fundamental delusion of the mind. And that delusion is that I am this limited character.
When we're living from a small separate self, there's always some kind of perpetual dissatisfaction. So this can be big dissatisfaction like trauma, or it can be just this background feeling. Something's not right. Something's wrong. I'm missing something. Even when I have some pleasure, even when I achieve something in the world, even when I have a good relationship, if I just have a pause or a moment, there's this dissatisfied feeling like I'm isolated or cut off from something. So this feeling, which it seems like most people have, can motivate us to awaken from that small separate self whose nature is a kind of separation anxiety.
This limited character has a tendency to grasp for what it wants. It's just a collection of conditioned patterns of craving what it wants or trying to push away what it doesn't want. It's this endless process of, you could say, a pleasure principle, going after pleasure, avoiding pain. And if we believe we are this character, this conditioned pattern, then we suffer and we create suffering in the world. The world becomes a reflection of that egoic consciousness. The benefit of awakening is that you suffer less and the people around you suffer less.
There's no doubt in my mind that my initial connection with my understanding of God was an awakening for me in my life, the biggest awakening that I've ever experienced. It was very much as if I had been asleep really for 50 years, walking around like a robot, just doing the things that I was taught to do from the time I was a young man. I had the whole formula down: get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the house, get the spouse. A formula that I really thought was how life was supposed to work, until I got to be around 53 years old, and I realized that while I had done most of those things and had become professionally successful to a degree, then I realized that none of it mattered. I woke up somewhere around the age of 53, realized none of this matters. None of this means anything. Was shocked to find how little it really meant, how pointless it all was.
When you stop following the script that has been laid out for your character, the one inherited from parents, society, and biological conditioning, then new dimensions open up within the game. The path opens up. But it is not a path to reach some destination. It is a pathless path, a stripping away of illusion to arrive exactly where you are, in the now.
My name is Rupert Spira. I speak about the essential non-dual understanding that underlies all the great religious and spiritual traditions. And I write and lead guided meditations and have conversations whose purpose is to lead to an experiential recognition of this understanding. Understand that the peace and the happiness for which we all long above all else can never, by definition, be found in objective experience. It can never be provided by objects, substances, activities, and relationships. I would suggest understanding that clearly and not spending the rest of one's life seeking fulfillment where it cannot be found. Anyone who is watching this movie is doing so precisely because they have either understood or at least intuited that the peace and happiness for which they long cannot be found in objective experience, and have begun this investigation into their true nature. That is the most important investigation one can make, and it is the investigation upon which depends our happiness.
The biggest question of my life, of course, which I believe is the question most people look at sooner or later, is what is the point actually? What is the point of life? And much to my surprise, I was told that the point of life had nothing to do with anything that I was doing. It wasn't about my job. It wasn't about my career. It wasn't about hardly anything in my physical life. Those were aspects of my life, but they were not the point of my life. The point of my life, as I have come to understand it, was for me to experience, express, demonstrate, and fulfill my true identity, who I really am. I think that the biggest question that most people face is a question that hardly anyone ever asks themselves or ever answers. The biggest question of life, my understanding, is, who am I? Who am I? Am I simply a physical entity, like a bird in the sky or a fish in the sea? You know, perhaps more sophisticated, but just a physical entity. I'm born, I live, I die. That's the beginning and the end of it. Or is it possible, just possible, that I'm more than that? Is it possible that I'm a spiritual entity, simply having a physical experience?
Every experience in your life has brought you to this one universal question. Who are you? Don't look for an answer with the mind. Let everything be exactly as it is. Who is aware of the mind? Feel everything that comes up. Who is aware of those feelings? Have a complete experience of everything that comes up as a result of your inquiry. I'm Donald Hoffman, and I'm a professor emeritus of cognitive sciences at the University of California at Irvine. My work has been teaching students, although now I'm emeritus, so I don't teach. And now I do research. I do research on, right now, on consciousness, mathematical models of consciousness, and how physics and space-time might arise from a theory of consciousness that's completely mathematically precise. My own journey has been both from the spiritual side and from the science side. So my father was a minister, a fundamentalist Christian minister. So I got that, on Sundays, and I got science at school, and they conflicted, right? The stories I was getting were contradictory. And so as a teenager, I realized I needed to figure things out for myself. And I decided the question I wanted to answer was, are we machines? Are people just machines or not? I mean, from the physicalist point of view, we would just be machines. From a spiritual point of view, we wouldn't be machines. I mean, it wasn't precise enough to say what we would be. And so I decided to ask the question scientifically, are we just machines? And the best way I thought to do that would be to study artificial intelligence. And so I went to MIT and was in the artificial intelligence lab studying artificial intelligence, and also in what's now the brain and cognitive science department studying the human side of things, because I wanted to do both. I wanted to see what can machines do and what's special, if anything, about humans and human neuroscience. To answer that very question, are the spiritual traditions right? Are we more than just machines? Or is the physicalist scientific point of view right? And we are just machines, and consciousness is just an artifact of brain activity. The scientific materialist paradigm that has been predominant in the last century denies the existence of anything beyond the physical, anything that cannot be verified by the scientific method. Science is at an impasse. It cannot move beyond the paradox that is fundamental to quantum physics. which brought it face to face with the observer, with consciousness itself. Likewise, religions are for the most part functioning only on the level of belief. They've lost their original purpose, which was to lead to direct experience of the truth of who and what we are. The split between science and spirituality has rendered both impoverished. Religions and spiritual systems desperately need rigorous methods, which can be shown to create conditions for awakening to happen. And science desperately needs an openness to the possibility of something beyond the physical. It is not about giving up religion or science, but about going deeper, being willing to change ourselves so that we become a better tool for investigation. We are the ones doing the experiment and the experiment itself.
Religion has been the language and the container of these traditions of meditation, spirituality that have been written down and passed on through the generations. Now, certainly there is some language that is very literal, which divides religions and divides cultures when things are taken literally. But if you feel the spirit of religion, you can follow the thread back to authentic awakening. Anyone has the potential, whether they have belief or no belief, because awakening is inherent within our human consciousness just by our human birth. So whatever you call it and whatever language is used, there's certain principles that seem to be the same throughout these different religions and spiritualities and meditation traditions.
When I was younger, this understanding was mainly available in the Eastern spiritual traditions. It was available in the Western traditions, but it was so disguised and codified in those traditions as to be almost inaccessible. So many people of my generation went physically, or at least intellectually, to the East to find this understanding. And Eastern culture, by comparison with Western culture, is exotic. And so this understanding acquired a flavor of the exotic from the cultures in which it was expressed. And many people, myself included, thought as a result of this that there was something exotic about the non-dual understanding, that it required some extraordinary way of life. You had to give up family life or grow your hair or get a special name or subscribe to some kind of teacher or tradition or engage in strange practices. All these kind of things which had nothing to do with the core understanding, and they were to do with the culture in which the understanding was expressed at a particular time. So now the understanding has been completely divested of the traditional cultural packaging in which many of us first heard about it, and now just the essential understanding is available in a way that enables us to carry on leading our lives exactly as they are: family life, work life. It's not necessary to make any external changes in one's life.
The challenge we have on this planet is that we think there's more than one essence. So we live in a world of what I would call duality. There's male and female, black and white, big and small, fast and slow, up and down, here, there, before and after. But in fact, there's only one thing. All things are one thing. And there is only one thing. So it turns out that when we look deeply at everything, we see that here and there, big and small, fast and slow, up and down, left and right, male and female, are all the same thing, simply expressing different characteristics, but in no way separate from each other. I believe that all of us are individuations of God. I believe that God exists in, as, and through every human being, and for that matter, every sentient being in the cosmos. So I see then that I am in relationship to God as a wave is to the ocean. The wave is no different from the ocean. It's simply an arising of the ocean in individual form. And when that individuation is complete, the wave recedes back into the ocean whence it came to arise again on another day. So I believe that we are all individuations of divinity. And when we see everything as divine, we change our relationship with everything, and everything becomes different in our experience. That's how the world changes.
Consciousness is the ultimate reality of the universe. So we might well ask, if consciousness is the ultimate reality of the universe and everything and everyone is obviously that, then how come that the world appears to us as a multiplicity and diversity of discrete and independently existing people and animals and things, all made out of stuff called matter? How can we reconcile this statement that consciousness is the ultimate reality of the universe when it appears as a multiplicity and diversity of objects made out of matter?
So the evidence that I'm using to suggest that consciousness is fundamental has many aspects to it. One is that physics itself says that space-time isn't fundamental, and evolutionary theory also agrees that space-time and physical objects are not fundamental reality. Now, both of those theories tell us only that space-time is not fundamental. They don't tell us what is beyond space-time. And so my argument is that what the physicists are finding beyond space-time, they're finding mathematical structures, but what those are about is not really clear. What is this realm beyond space-time about? And so I'm proposing that the realm beyond space-time is about consciousness.
And I would suggest that infinite consciousness has the ability to localize itself as numerous separate subjects of experience. That is, all sentient beings, all people, all animals. Each of us are localizations of infinite consciousness, in infinite consciousness, made only of infinite consciousness, from whose perspective it views its own activity as the outside world. So what appears to us as a world made out of matter, from our localized perspectives, is, from the point of view of reality, simply the activity of the one infinite consciousness. In other words, in the ultimate analysis, there are no discrete or independently existing things or people. There is one infinite, indivisible whole, the unity of being, that is only refracted into an apparent multiplicity and diversity of objects and things when the one looks at its own activity through the perceiving faculties of the finite mind.
If we are awake, we realize that there's one awareness that is disguised as all of these different beings on the planet. One awareness shining through everyone's eyes. Then we literally see ourselves in others, and that tendency to operate as an ego, the tendency to take for oneself, falls away because we directly realize the truth. The truth is that we're all one consciousness.
The experience of my spiritual self was only possible in the realm of the physical for a very good reason. Because only in the realm of the physical was the opposite available. In other words, just to use a simple example, if I wanted to experience myself, so I could speak metaphorically, as the light, I couldn't experience being the light if I was amidst the light, nothing else around me but the light. which is a perfect definition of the realm of the spiritual. So I would come to a realm which I call the realm of the physical, where there is something other than the light. Because if I want to experience myself as the light, not just know myself as that, but experience it, I could only do that where there was the opposite of the light, in this case, the darkness. So I brought myself to the physical realm where the light and the dark exist simultaneously. And then in that outward expression of myself as the light, I could be who I really am.
This understanding suggests that behind our differences, we are all the same being, not a similar being, but we are all literally one, the same being. And love is the felt experience of this oneness or shared being.
It's a theorem of our theory that there is ultimately one consciousness. So we have this dynamics of many, many conscious agents, but the theory tells us that ultimately all those conscious agents are really just projections of a single one consciousness. The current paradigm in science has, and it has been for centuries, is that space and time are the fundamental nature of reality. They're irreducible, and they are the foundation of everything. And prior to Einstein, space and time were viewed as separate. Now space and time together, unified into space-time, are viewed as the fundamental nature of reality. And science has then assumed that space-time and objects in space-time are the foundational reality. And so, for example, when we talk about consciousness itself then must be somehow a product of objects in space and time. In that physicalist framework, space and time and physical objects, without any consciousness, are the fundamental reality. And consciousness comes later on in the evolution of the universe, right? So that the Big Bang, there was no consciousness, there was just space-time and energy. The energy coalesced into massive particles, and eventually life emerged after who knows how many billions or hundreds of millions or billions of years. Then after that, consciousness came even later. From that point of view, when you die, the physical complexity that gave rise to consciousness dissolves, and so your consciousness dissolves. And so the physicalist framework really does eliminate consciousness as a fundamental thing altogether, and says that when your body dies, your consciousness goes with it. From this other point of view, what I've done with my colleagues is we used evolutionary theory to point out that it's an implication of evolutionary theory that space and time is not fundamental. So the physicalist interpretation of evolution is wrong. The idea that space and time and particles somehow have evolved to human organisms is the wrong framework, because space-time itself is not fundamental. We're positing a dynamics beyond space-time that's much richer, this dynamics of consciousness. What we do not do is throw away our old theories. When physicists say space-time is doomed, that doesn't mean we no longer pay attention to Einstein. Absolutely not. We pay attention to Einstein. Any new theory beyond space-time that the physicists come up with better project into space-time and give us back Einstein, and it better give us back quantum theory, or you're wrong. Right? So all of our old theories are wonderful, wonderful friends, and we're going to keep them as special cases of a deeper theory. So in our theory of consciousness, we have to do the same thing. We can't just propose anything we want. We have to have a theory of consciousness that projects and gives us back space-time. It gives us back quantum theory. It gives us back special and general relativity, and it gives us back evolution by natural selection. If we cannot do that in precise mathematical detail, then there's no reason for scientists to take our theory of consciousness seriously.
It's as if infinite consciousness puts on a virtual reality headset, is it? Infinite consciousness puts on a VR headset made of thinking and perceiving. And in doing so, the moment it puts on the VR headset, it localizes itself within its own activity. And through that headset, it looks out through the perceiving faculties of a finite mind, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. And it fragments the unity of its own being and makes it appear as 10,000 things. What I'm suggesting is that there is very much more to the universe than the finite mind. I'm not suggesting that the universe only appears in each of our finite minds. The universe exists outside of our finite mind, but inside consciousness. But it is the limitations of our finite mind